Welcome to
This or That Thursdays.
So today we're discussing strict diets with binges versus moderate diets. So we'll start off with the definition.
So definition of a strict diet would be having a good option or example of this would be like your macros. So you have your carbs, your proteins, and your fats set. You eat within those day in and day out. Very strict on, say, whole foods and things like that. Very stringent diet. So you are eating the same high quality, mind you, great food day in and day out.
And there's little room for error.
Yeah, you're sticking to your numbers.
It's very, very strict. We see this a lot when you're thinking like competition prep. That would be kind of an easy example of that, but we get a lot of people that jump on some sort of the next latest and greatest diet plan, and it's very strict. Even keto is very strict, right? We're looking at that 70 plus calories coming from fat. So just lots of different kind of diet plans that are very, very strict in what they tell you can and can't eat.
So the second part of that was the binge portion. So if you're doing a strict diet, doesn't matter who you are, eventually you're going to hit a breaking point where you're going to want something more than just that diet. So I know I've seen these on Instagram before where it shows like Monday through Friday with like all the good foods, and then weekends it's like pizza, beer, hamburgers, all this other stuff that doesn't fit their strict diet. So the downside to these strict diets is eventually you're going to crack and you're going to get something in you that doesn't follow your strict diet.
But it's not even that it's just something in you that you're going to get in that's not part of your diet. It's never, like, oh, I had one extra cookie. It was that, oh my goodness, I ate the whole tray of cookies.
I ate a tray of cookies.
and then with these binges, we usually get feelings of guilt or regret that come along with it. And guilt and regret actually are just very unhealthy feelings to attach to foods specifically.
And if you're an emotional eater, guilt and regret will make you eat even more.
Right, because you're looking for that dopamine hit in the brain that is going to cause you to want to have those highly palatable foods. That's usually what we binge on. I've never actually come across anybody that's like, oh, I just binged on this entire plate of broccoli last night. Like, it's never a plate of broccoli.
For most people. Okay, so that's your strict diet with a binge. So then what's your moderate diet?
So your moderate diet is like an 80-20 rule. We hear this a lot. Or planning out like a little bit of room for, something that might not be completely strict. So say strict is like your chicken and rice and broccoli.
Bro diet.
Your bro diet. And then your moderate diet might be like chicken and potatoes and carrots or fish, and like it just changes it up, but you're still very focused on whole foods, but you could have, a small serving of french fries. Because it's all carbohydrates. Your body doesn't recognize, oh, I had honey, oh, I had white sugar. It all breaks down to glucose in your bloodstream. So, allowing that little bit of room might also allow you to be less likely to binge.
Okay, so out of the two of them, strict diet with a binge or a moderate diet, being that you're the nutrition expert, what would you recommend?
Definitely
binges.
No. Definitely moderate diet, but there is a caveat to that, is that some people, especially when they come to us at first, they're very black and white in their thinking. I'm either all good or I'm completely off track, and that's not really the case. It can't be black and white. There has to be room for gray, and you have to see things in that gray, because just because you decided that you were going to have a chocolate chip cookie for dessert doesn't make your diet bad, and that chocolate chip cookie isn't going to cause you to completely fall off track. But it's what are the behaviors around that chocolate chip cookie before you eat it and after you eat it, and where's your head at? Like where are your emotions at? Where are your feelings at that go along with that?
So just throwing this out there, just open-ended question here. The strict diet with the binge or even the moderate diet. Now, how do meals out fall into this? Say a lot of my guys are hockey players, so let's just say you have you're eating 80% of the time, eating great, clean foods, whole foods, doing awesome, and then you're in a hockey tournament in the middle of nowhere, and you need to eat out. How does that fall in?
You pick the best option available, but you also need to kind of pick something that you're going to enjoy. So there is a factor of enjoyment that comes with food, is very much built into our culture. But they've been able to prove in science, depending on how you enjoy your food will also depend on how your body digests it and the amount of nutrients that you actually get from it. So there is a certain level of enjoyment that you need to have in that. So, I mean, when we look at moderation, it might be, oh, I'm going to have a cheeseburger while I'm out with my buddies, but I'm going to couple that with a salad. That would be moderation, right? Whereas your binge might be, I'm going to have a cheeseburger and french fries because I wanted it. And now you're being defiant because I was told I shouldn't. And then you eat it because you're being a badass. And then after, now I feel kind of guilty that I ate that, or I don't feel so good, I'm regretting it. And those kind of decisions that go along with that.
Makes sense.
So the biggest takeaway here is talking about what is a strict diet with a binge and why are binges maybe less beneficial.
Because generally when you binge, you're not eating healthy food.
True.
And how do you want to fuel your body? Is at the end of the day, this is what you're looking at. Overall, the big picture, how are you fueling your body? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, do you, when you have that cookie or, you know, a couple handfuls of chips, do you completely just say screw it and fall right off and just now that cookie and those couple bags of chips
bites of chips turn into bags of chips.
They turn into bags of chips and it just perpetuates from there, and the next morning it's I'm having eggs and bacon and that's the way it is because I already screwed up yesterday and I'm just going to screw up today, and you just keep with that mental, and that is that binge black and white mentality. Whereas if you go out and you had that cheeseburger and french fries for dinner that night, and the next morning you decide that you're going to have a nice omelet with lots of vegetables in it, and maybe you're going to forego the cheese in today's omelet because you had that little bit of high carb meal last night, then you're moving forward and you're making those steps and those strides towards it, and that is moderation. That is understanding that nutrition is fluid. Just because your body doesn't regulate things based on one day, it's fluid through a course of a week, so we don't gain and lose weight based on one day. I mean, your weight can fluctuate within 5 pounds depending on hydration levels and sodium and a whole whack load of other things play into that. But you don't gain and lose weight based on one meal and based on one day's actions. Unless you decide to eat like a crazy amount of crazy bad food in one day and then binge drink that same day, and then, you know, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys are getting something out of this. Moderation, everything in moderation, and be aware that your days can fluctuate from day to day. It doesn't have to be that I fell off track today at dinner, that I'm not going to be okay to get right back on track tomorrow morning. So being very aware, and just, you know, if you decide that you're going to go to McDonald's for lunch one day, that means that maybe for dinner you're going to have maybe slightly less carbohydrates at your dinner, depending on what your goals are. I mean, if you're a hockey player, like Mike already said, maybe you need those extra carbohydrates, but maybe you forgo some of the fat at dinner or something along those lines.
I think awareness was the word that stuck out to me when you said it, because being aware of what you're eating, being aware of the emotions you have when you're eating is pretty important, right? So you the big takeaway for me from this is don't beat yourself up. If you have one meal where you fall off, consider that your moderation, jump right back on track.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Mindfulness, slow down in your eating, enjoy the food that you're eating, and hopefully you guys got something out of this. Have an amazing day.
Have an awesome day, guys.